Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In today's video, we are going to discuss about a deal that is going to take place between United States and Saudi Arabia, that is the civil nuclear deal. It is very similar to the deal that US and India has signed few years ago. So what is the prospects, benefits of this deal for both the countries, and what are the possible challenges that both of countries could face in finalization of this particular agreement? So to give you the context of this particular issue, as of now, the National Security Advisor of United States of America, that is Jake Sullivan, he is on a trip to the Saudi Arabia. It is in this trip, he is going to talk about the civil nuclear cooperation agreement that US and Saudi are planning to sign. US hopes that after signing of this deal, the renormalization of relationships can be achieved between US partner Israel as well as US partner in the Middle East, that is Saudi Arabia. As to give you the background of this particular issue, basically both countries, Israel and Saudi Arabia, are currently at loggerheads with each other. First, due to the general question of Palestine and its status, and also due to the recent situation that is unfolding in Gaza, where Israel is attacking the Hamas, this terrorist. So let us try to understand in this context the risk and the benefits associated with the civil nuclear deal and how it fits within the overall efforts that is being made by the United States, especially the present Biden administration, to broker the Israel-Saudi reconciliation and overall to weaken the rising stature of Iran, especially with the help of China. So let us try to understand about the civil nuclear cooperation agreement first. Now it is under the United States Atomic Energy Act that was signed in year 1954. The US under this act, there is a provision or the section which is called as section 123, and it is because of this reason also when we refer to the US India nuclear agreement, we also refer it as a 123 agreement or 123 nuclear deal. So as per this section, it gives the United States power or the government power to negotiate any kind of agreement so that it can engage in significant civil nuclear cooperation with other nations. Now the term civil is very important here because when you talk about nuclear cooperation, it can occur in the field of military or defense also. However, when you talk about civil nuclear cooperation, it strictly means that any use of nuclear energy will be only for the peaceful purposes such as generation of electricity. It cannot be enriched, that is uranium cannot be enriched and can be used for the making or manufacturing of weapons or cannot be put into missiles. So that is where this deal is basically restricting itself to, or this agreement basically restricts itself to. Now it specifies that any country with which US want to have this pact, have this agreement, need to fulfill 9 criteria which relates to non-proliferation. Now again, non-proliferation in general sense refers to a kind of restriction that is imposed on a country or the country can impose itself in development of any kind of nuclear missiles and nuclear weapons. It states must meet to keep them from using the technology as we discussed to develop nuclear arms, or even if they are not developing nuclear arm by itself, the country is not able or not permitted to transfer such kind of sensitive materials to the other countries or help other countries prepare. So the law stipulates after this act or pact or agreement is signed, basically Congress is expected to do review of the same after the US government has signed this agreement. So that is applicable for all kind of agreement that is signed under this particular act. Now let us suppose if this deal is finalized, which many experts believe are in the end stage of finalization. So what are the benefits Saudi Arabia is expected to reap from it? So overall, first of all, if we try to understand from the perspective of nuclear energy generation, which the deal will largely target, we know that Saudi Arabia is world's largest oil exporter. It has a huge oil reserves, crude oil reserves. So from that logic, it seems illogical that Saudi Arabia will spend so much time to have nuclear agreement. However, we also have to keep in mind that what are the regions Saudi Arabia might be interested in this deal. The first region relates to the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, that is Mohammed bin Salman, and his ambitious vision, which he refers as Vision 2030 Reform Plan. Now, one of the major subjects or one of the major agenda under this vision is to decrease the greenhouse gas emission that is happening, or carbon emissions we can say, that is happening from Saudi Arabia, and at the same time to shift the Saudi Arabia's energy dependence from the oil reserves to the renewable sector. And that is where the nuclear pact can come into picture. Not only that, in case someday if Saudi Arabia wishes to acquire nuclear weapons, despite the safeguards that might be enshrined in any deal with Washington to prevent this, Saudi Arabia will have a much better positioning as compared to present to do so. And in this context, Saudi Arabia has maintained its position that if Iran, that is the rival of Saudi Arabia, developed a nuclear weapon, Saudi Arabia without any hesitation will follow suit and develop its own nuclear weapon. To give you the context of this particular issue, basically Iran, that is Shia based country or Shia led country, while Saudi Arabia considered itself as a leader of Sunni Islam. And that is why both of these countries are basically rival for a very long period of time, and relations have not improved since then. And that is why if Iran develops a nuclear weapon, Saudi Arabia will face existential crisis, or will face we can say dwarfing of the role in overall Middle East, and that is why it also need to have a nuclear weapon. Now, what are the benefits that US is expected to reap from this deal? So, the benefits can be clubbed into two senses. One, obviously there will be commercial benefit, commercial gains to it, and second, also it can hope to reap some strategic benefits from that. Now, what are the benefits? So, first of all, if the US is able to sign this deal, it expects or hopes that it will be able to broker a long short multi-part arrangement leading Saudi Arabia and Israel to normalize relations. Second, Saudi's support for normalization thus might hinge partly on striking a civil nuclear deal. So, it is a kind of quid pro quo kind of situation that we can see unfolding here. Second, by signing of such kind of agreement, US will cement its ties more strongly with Saudi Arabia, and thus Israel's security can also be shored up, beefed up. At least it will not have any threat from the other Arabian worlds that is led by Saudi Arabia, because Israel already is having confrontation directly or indirectly by Iran or Iran led Hezbollah. Also, after signing of this agreement, US thinks that it might be able to build a wider coalition against Iran, and also it will reinforce American ties to Saudi Arabia, which is the wealthiest, or at least we can say one of the wealthiest nations in the Arab world, at a time when China is trying to extend its influence in the Gulf. And also, to remind you, few months back, China also tried to broker a deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran to overall enhance its image in the Arabian landscape diplomacy. If we talk about the commercial benefits, obviously it is expected that if the US is able to sign the deal, obviously Saudi Arabia will have to invest in developing nuclear energy plants, and it will require expertise, it will require a lot of materials, lot of industry, a lot of machineries, and there the US industry will have a benefit. They can position themselves in a prime spot, and they are hopeful to win a contract against countries which are rival of US, such as we can say China and Russia, and even other countries where US is losing its spot in the global business. So, both strategic as well as commercial benefits US can expect to reap from this. However, signing of this agreement is not going to be easy, because there are several hurdles that the deal might face. Now, what are these hurdles? So, if you try to understand this, to start, it's all but inconceivable at the time when Gaza war is raging on. That is at least what most of the experts believe. Even let us imagine a good situation or a best situation if US and Saudi are able to sign a deal. It does not matter that Saudi will support Israel or will try to re-normalize its relations with Israel as long as the Gaza war goes on. To give you context of this particular issue, Actually, Israel invaded Gaza Strip, that is lying on the western side of Israel, after Hamas-led gunmen attacked the southern Israeli communities somewhere in the month of October 2023, where almost 1200 people were kidnapped and 253 hostages were taken. As a response of this, Israel invaded Gaza Strip, and due to this invasion, as of now, the death toll in Gaza has also increased, and it is somewhere around the figure of 35,000. Also, due to lack of food, lack of basic necessities, malnutrition, hunger, famine, these are the things that is also spreading out. So, in such situation, it is hard to imagine that Saudi Arabia will be willing to normalize relations while Palestinians are dying in such a huge number. So, even after signing of this deal, US might not be able to get what actually it wants. Now, how US can try to basically woo Saudi Arabia? So, it is believed that US hopes to find a way to give Saudi Arabia several things it wants, not only the civil nuclear agreement. So, first is obviously a civil nuclear pact is on the main agenda, plus US can also ascertain Saudi Arabia for a security guarantees similar to what it has given to Taiwan against any kind of Chinese threat or invasion, and also a pathway toward a Palestinian state which most of the Arab countries demand for, in return for Riyadh agreeing to normalize relationship with Israel. This will also solve other problem where Iran is trying to basically raise its stature. However, many experts argue that if we talk about the renormalization of relationship between Israel and Saudi Arabia, that is which is considered as a part of grand bargain, is something that seems very elusive given the current situation, current geopolitical situation both around Israel as well as Arabian Peninsula. Now, the key issues that the countries will have to face is after signing of agreement, whether US will agree to build a uranium enrichment facilities on the Saudi territory or not. And if suppose US agrees to build such kind of enrichment territory, uranium enrichment facilities, then whether Saudi personnel will have access to these enrichment facilities, and if yes, then what kind of access will be granted to them, or whether it would be run solely by the staffs coming from United States. This is something that also both countries will have to fix and agree. Second, US will never sign an agreement without building safeguards into it. Which kind of safeguard? As we have discussed, Saudi Arabia also has a huge uranium reserves, especially I will talk about on the western part of the country, and thus theoretically it can use this enrichment facility that America can build to produce highly enriched uranium, which if purified enough can yield fissile material, and then this fissile material can be used for making bombs, and then Saudi Arabia can also become a nuclear power country. So, this is something that US obviously do not want, so that it further destabilizes the entire region. Whether Saudi Arabia would agree to make Saudi investment in US based and US owned uranium enrichment facilities, again if the first statement materializes, and whether it will be open to hire US companies to build a Saudi nuclear reactors or not, that is something that is a big question that is lying above the we can say diplomats of both the countries. So, without ensuring that there is a clear arrangement and agreement on all these matters, any practical materialization of civil nuclear deal seems highly unlikely. That is all about this particular video. I hope you got the gist of the civil nuclear cooperation agreement that is expected to be signed between US and Saudi Arabia. Thank you very much.